All right, we are back. It has been a while. It's been too long, actually, and so we figured what better way to come back to the Drive On channel than with this new car from Redcat. This is the Redcat Gen 8 International Harvester Scout Blue Edition, which also just happens to be my favorite color. So already winning me over right there. This is actually a really interesting model, not only because does it have a lot of features and a ton of bang for buck. It's coming in at $299, but also this is one of Redcat's first in the sense that it is the first Redcat car to be designed from the ground up by the team at Redcat. Previously, as a lot of you may or may not know, a lot of Redcat's models have been models that have been designed in China and then brought over and rebranded as Redcat, which is really, really cool because you can get decent, really good cars at a really, really good price. But Redcat's come a long way in the past 5 to 10 years, and this is one of their first in a new direction that they're taking their company where they're designing their products from the ground up, and it really, really shows. So we're gonna get just the basic overview out of the way. Like I said earlier, this is coming in at $299. It is a International Harvester Scout.
Next time winter looks like this, fight back with this. Scout. Anything less is just a car.
Which I did not know what that was until this came out. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of this car and the way it looks. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar with these types of cars, these are what's known as scale crawlers. So they are not meant for speed. They are meant for off-road capabilities. They are not made to go fast. Most of the time, in fact, you're going as slow as possible and crawling over terrain in a scale fashion, like you would be if you were in a real car this size driving off-road. If you watch real off-roaders go back through the back, rocky terrains of the forest or up on canyons and whatnot, typically somebody who has a hopped up 4Runner is not going 60 miles an hour over terrain. They are crawling and they're going on an expedition over the terrain, and that's what you do with these scale crawlers. The word scale means that there's an emphasis on making it look like a real car. That being said, in a lot of cases, the scale details oftentimes trump performance, and so a lot of times you end up with a little bit top-heavy crawler just because they're trying to maintain that scale look. If you look at some of the more performance-based crawlers, you notice that they steer away from scale looks and they become more wider wheelbase, lower center of gravity, and they are capable of crawling over a lot more terrain. But with scale, you're obviously focusing a lot more on scale, and honestly, the car looks fantastic right out of the box. It has nice details with the windows and the little fairings on the wheel wells. It really, really does look fantastic, all the way to the grille and the bumpers, as well as the headlights and the taillights. Speaking of which, the headlights and taillights do not have LEDs in them, but they do come ready to go if you want to put your own LED kit in it, which is pretty cool. Moving on to some of more of the specifications, it does have an adjustable wheelbase, which is really, really cool, especially if you really plan on making this your own. And that's one of the biggest parts about the crawling hobby is everybody has their own rig, as they like to call it. So what a lot of people do is they'll swap out the stock body, even though this one's cool. I'm gonna keep it on there personally, but they'll make a scale replica of their favorite car, or oftentimes it's actually their car. They have a real Jeep in real life, and they go out and they find a 1/10 scale Jeep body. They put it onto their Everest Gen 8, and boom, you have a RC model of your real car or your favorite car, which is really, really cool. And so the adjustable wheelbase goes from 312 millimeters all the way up to 336 millimeters. And so that's going to allow you to use a lot of different types of bodies. You go for like a shorter coupled like Jeep Wrangler all the way up to like an old school, like longer, say like a Chevy Suburban or something like that, depending on what kind of rig you're trying to build. It just gives you more flexibility. The other cool thing is some of the components that come with seem to be really, really high quality. It has aluminum shocks, aluminum threaded shocks. It does have a 1.5 millimeter metal C chassis plate. Just the overall build quality, especially compared to the Gen 7, I mean, it's just noticeably different when you pick it up and you hold it, and even when you drive it. There are a lot of similarities between the Gen 7 and the Gen 8, but I'd say there's even more differences. You guys know how much we love the Gen 7. To this day, it's still a great platform, especially if you're looking to get into crawling for the first time. Another really, really cool feature that I was excited to see on this is the portal axles. And so basically, if you look at the bottom of the truck, especially compared to the Gen 7, you notice that the axle is way, way higher. And basically, the way that they're able to do that is through a system of gears, which actually portals the axle down below on the actual wheel hubs on the outside, which basically just gives you a lot more ground clearance. And you can see the difference noticeably between the Gen 7 and the Gen 8. It's very, very capable in terms of off-road. It has a 47-degree steering angle, and in my opinion, from the Gen 7 to the Gen 8, that is the most important improvement that they've made. And basically all that means is you have a tighter turning radius. Literally my only complaint with the Gen 7 was the turning radius. The steering angle was not that great. And now there were some workarounds. You could kind of DIY mod it yourself to help fix that, but it's nice with the Gen 8 because it comes with a great turning radius right out of the box. It's really going to help you on that off-road terrain. Beyond the nice turning radius, it also has some amazing performance in terms of your approach angle. It's up to, at least with the bumper setup and the body that it comes with, it's up to a 61-degree approach angle. So that means you can go up to any incline up to 61 degrees and you're going to be able to get up it, and even sometimes beyond that if you're like me and you're a little bit trigger happy on the throttle. Also, beyond the approach angle, it also has a 47-degree departure angle, so you're also going to be able to come down off of those steep declines and not have to worry about banging up your bumper or your body too much. So the whole platform is running off of a 17T brushed motor. It's a big old brushed motor. Most of the crawling that I've done has been with basically stock crawlers that I have kind of tuned to my likings. I haven't got too far into upgrading to either different brushed motors, or even a lot of guys go brushless motors. But what I've learned with the 17T brushed motor is it's more than enough. It's got a ton of power. I like to compare it to, or it just reminds me of like a drill motor. It has a ton of low end torque, and so you're not going to get a ton of speed, but it has tons of power to help you really get up those steep inclines. Another big difference between the Gen 7 and the Gen 8 is it has a sealed gearbox, specifically the spur and pinion gear. They actually have a cover on them now, and it actually appears to be really, really well protected, where on the Gen 7 it was just wide open. Personally, that didn't cause many problems with the open gearing, but I could see how it potentially could. I guess I may have been just lucky because I've been pretty hard on it as well, but it is nice having that peace of mind knowing that your gears are protected so you don't get anything into those gears that you don't want, like rocks. One of my favorite upgrades on the Gen 8 compared to the Gen 7 is the body. Not only am I a big fan of the Scout look, I just think it looks cool. I really like the color. Like I said, blue's my favorite, but also they added these hard body mounting plates on the inside, and it's basically just plastic reinforcement to go on your traditional hobby body, and it adds so much structural integrity to the body, and it also just makes it easier, in my opinion, to remove and put the body back on. It actually comes out of the box using Velcro, which works pretty well. I think I'm actually going to upgrade that to magnets eventually, but it's just much better the way that the body is put together, not only from a durability standpoint, but also just an aesthetic standpoint. It looks great with that plastic detail. And then not to mention also the way that the internal structure of the body interlocks with the wheel wells on the chassis. It actually protects the interior pretty darn well from flying mud, dirt, and debris. That was something that actually kind of caught me off guard. Other than the TRX4, this is one of the only crawlers that I've had that has actual wheel wells and a little bit of protection to keep that dirt out of the inside of the car. I didn't really understand how valuable that would be until I actually took it out into the mud and the ice and I was ripping it around, and I took the body off and I was like super surprised to see how much of the mud it actually kept out. Now granted, you still have to clean up your truck a little bit, but it definitely makes it a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about like soaking or scrubbing any of the vital electronic components as much, because it really does a great job of keeping the mud out. One of the few similarities between the Gen 7 and the Gen 8 is the tires, which is honestly one of my favorite things about the Gen 7. It has again the licensed Interco Super Swamper tires, which I'm not that into real off-road vehicles, so the scale detail isn't as crucial to me personally, but just from using quite a few different crawlers over the past year, honestly, like the tires on these Gen 7s and Gen 8s are probably my favorite. I even like them more than like the Traxxas TRX4 tires that come right out of the box. There's actually tests online that I've seen, I'll put a link below, but there's actually like some tests that have been done where actually these Gen 7 tires that just come stock with these trucks actually oftentimes outperform some of the most popular crawler tires as well as aftermarket crawler tires, which is pretty impressive. They do also come with 1.9-inch beadlock wheels right out of the box. I realize that you're probably going to be able to get a little bit nicer quality beadlock wheels aftermarket, but just the fact that it comes with them right out of the box, the TRX4, which is like $150 to $200 more expensive than this truck, doesn't even come with that. And so one of the things that I also like too is it has the lock nut cover, and so once you screw your lock nut on, you also screw on this little lock nut cover, and it actually looks like a little scale hub to an actual full-size wheel, which is pretty cool. Beyond that, it also has a completely different setup on the inside compared to the Gen 7. Just the way that the motor is placed, it actually has a separate gearbox box to allow for the motor to be placed in a completely separate area, and therefore that allows the battery to be placed in a different area as well. And basically the idea is it keeps that battery mass as low as possible. So even though these trucks look pretty tall, you'd actually be surprised how much it actually takes for one of these things to flip over. Granted, I have flipped it over a couple times, but taking it up some really steep inclines, even turning the wheels and angles that you would think cause it to tip over, oftentimes it doesn't, which is really, really cool. The lower center of gravity battery tray definitely helps keep that gravity as low as possible. Beyond that, I mentioned it earlier, but the way that the body kind of velcros onto the wheel wells is really, really nice. But a nice little other detail, which I haven't seen from really any other crawlers that I've experienced, is these little rock sliders on the side of the car. Not only do they look cool, and they also protect your body from rocks and stuff like that, but just the way that the Lexan body actually kind of clips into that rock slider, it actually makes for a nice tight connection between the body and the truck. Compared to the Gen 7, for example, it's very flimsy and it just doesn't feel as high quality. But with this Gen 8, it definitely, there's a big difference. So overall at $299, I really, really like what Redcat is doing with their position in the industry, bringing higher and higher quality products while still maintaining their vision of keeping it affordable, which is really, really cool. Some of these cars that are coming out are $500, $600, which, you know, I know a lot of people can afford that, but at the end of the day, this is like a total recreational hobby. There's nothing other than recreation here. So anytime that you can save money, obviously it makes it even more fun, in my opinion, is when you can have a really good, fun experience and you're actually saving costs compared to going with a different brand. So hats off to you, Redcat. We always are looking forward to what you guys are doing, and you guys seem to have knocked it out of the park with this Redcat Gen 8. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so. We're going to be doing a lot more drive-on videos, so let us know down in the comments if you have any other crawlers or just any other surface vehicles in general that you'd like to see us cover, and we'll see you guys next time.